Hello and welcome to the Route 66 radio show interview special, and on this edition we're chatting to Walter Trout, the American blues guitar legend who's recently returned from a long stay in hospital with liver disease. He's back on good form. He's released a new album called Battle Scars. He's on a UK tour at the moment, and he's doing very well by all accounts. We chat to him about loads of things, including, of course, his experience in the hospital, writing this latest album, really strong lyrics on it, particularly, and also about his general kind of attitude towards playing and what it's like to relearn to play and relearn to sing, which he had to do after his illness. So we'll chat to Walter. There's also some photographs during this video. And don't forget, you can listen to the Route 66 radio show in full anytime you fancy. Just head over to rockin.com. Well, let's get into this interview with Walter then. I first of all asked him what it's like to be back on tour with his band again.
It was very therapeutic to do it because I went through quite an incredible almost 2 years of facing death right in the face every day. And when I came out of it and I was feeling good and wanted to get back to being a musician again, I just felt that it would be kind of like therapy for me to write about what I went through and try to tell the story. And I ended up with this kind of a concept album. You know, every song on there has to do with some aspect of my experience.
Indeed. I mean, we played Almost Gone close to the beginning of the show this evening. It's such a powerful opener for the album, but it's also very powerful lyrically. I mean, you're singing about some of your darkest hours. Was it hard to retrospectively, once you started to recover, to sit down and write those lyrics?
You know, here's a bit of a funny story. Was when I first sat down to write, after I got the ability to play back, I had to relearn how to play, you know. That took me months and months of work. But then I wanted to write something, and it kept coming out like, I'm still alive, and isn't this wonderful, and look at the sunshine, and smell the daisies, and it was all this cliched, flowery stuff. It was like, you know, I was writing songs for Olivia Newton-John or something here, you know, and it wasn't working. And my wife said, what you need to do is write about what you went through. Put yourself back, and you laid in a hospital bed on the edge of death for over 7 months. Put yourself back in the bed and write about it. And once she gave me that idea, I wrote that entire album in about 3 days. As a matter of fact, I wrote 6 of those songs in 1 day. It was very easy.
Crikey. So there was so much. I mean, I hate to call it material, but I mean, as an artist, you do draw on your own experiences. There was so much to sort of sing about and talk about from that experience in the hospital.
That's right. And every song on there has to do with kind of a certain aspect of that experience. And some of it, I'm hoping that maybe some people who are going through similar things can maybe listen to it and realize that there's lots of us who have gone through this, and that my story might be able to give them hope that it is possible to go through those incredibly dark hours, but to come out of it seeing light at the end of the tunnel here. And now I feel like my best years are still ahead of me, and that's an amazing thing. If you'd have told me that a year and a half ago, I'd have never believed it.
Well, that's very nice to hear. Moving through the album, the Prelude, track 2, and then track 3, Omar. Just tell me a little bit about that one, Walter.
Well, I live in Los Angeles, but I had to go to Omaha to get my liver transplant because in Los Angeles there's too many people on the waiting list and there's not enough donors. And they told me I only had 90 days to live if I didn't get a liver. So my wife moved me to Omaha, where you have a much greater chance of getting a liver. But the room I was in was over the emergency room entrance. So I was hearing sirens all day. I was hearing ambulances come in. There was a helicopter landing spot right there where they would bring people in. And that Omaha Prelude is really my attempt at sort of saying what the sounds I was hearing in my head. For instance, if you listen really close to that, there's a guy on there saying, code blue, code blue. And they used to say that over the PA system in the hospital maybe 3 or 4 times a day. And I found out code blue means somebody has died, and they need to go get his body out of there. So, that's just an attempt at kind of portraying what I was hearing in my head. And then the song Omaha itself is about what was it like just laying there and knowing that the guy in the next room just died and his family is out in the hall crying, and you can't sleep because they're coming in every hour and they're sticking a needle in you and taking your blood. And I have a heart monitor. I have all these wires on my chest, and I have a ventilator in my throat, and I couldn't eat, so I have a hose in my nose that they're giving me liquid. And then they're telling me to try to sleep, and it was an impossibility. And that song is an attempt at portraying what that was like, not just lyrically, but the sound of it. It's pretty dark.
Give me your hand. I won't walk out in the hall. I can't stand up, and I'm afraid that I might fall. Looking out my window at the rain, I need something for the pain, but I don't want to get strung out again. No, I don't. I'm down in Omaha.
Omaha from Walter Trout's fantastic new album, which is called Battle Scars, and he's here with us on Route 66 tonight. Walter, what's it like now, after all that, all the experience of the hospital time and writing this album and everything, to actually be back on stage with your band? I mean, presumably there must have been a time a year or so ago and you didn't think that was ever going to happen for you again.
I figured it the best if I was to survive and actually come through it, that maybe I'd be able to get a job at a Starbucks or something like that. I never thought I'd be able to play again, and I actually lost the ability to play, and I had to start over again and relearn. When I got home, I really didn't have anything else to do. I was in therapy 3 hours a day. I had to relearn how to walk. I had to relearn how to speak because I had brain damage and couldn't talk. I didn't recognize my kids, but other than that 3 hours a day that I did of therapy, I would just sit on the couch with a guitar and teach myself, how to get back into it. And now, when I go on stage, I have to say, I feel like I'm a kid again. It is so joyous and so much fun. It's an amazing experience. The last couple tours I did before I got sick, and I didn't realize what was causing this, but I was getting incredible cramps in my hands where I couldn't play, and I was getting equilibrium problems where I would fall over and I would have to sit on a chair, and I didn't know what it was at the time, but now I know it was my liver disease. And I'm back, and I think I'm stronger than ever, and I just really feel like my best years are ahead of me now. And at age 64, after what I went through, for me to say that is an amazing thing.
That is an incredible place to be, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm just in a very, very joyous, grateful, and happy place in my life right now. And every single breath is an amazing experience.
I first saw you back in, I think it was 2010, at the Shepherd's Bush Empire. You were touring the album which had Loaded Gun on it, Common Ground, which is a great album, and that track particularly I really enjoyed. It kind of reminds me, listening to Playin' Hideaway from this one, there's just something about that has a sort of similarity in a way. I mean, that in itself, to me, sounds like a return to form. Can you tell me a bit about Playin' Hideaway before we play it?
Well, when I was writing this song, or this album, and I wanted to write about my experience, I played that song for some friends of mine, came over, and I said, well, I got this new song I'm going to do. And they said, well, what does that have to do with what you went through? And I told them, I'm singing about myself, and that is an attempt to describe the depth of depression, despondency, the abyss that you can fall into mentally and emotionally when you're going through something like this. It knows no logic. When I sing on there, you don't have a lover, you don't have a friend. Of course I have a lover, my wife, who has kept me alive through all this. And I have plenty of friends, but you feel like with all of that, you're incredibly alone and you just want to close the door and you want to be by yourself and crawl into a corner, basically kind of go off into a corner and die. It's an attempt at singing about the deep depth of depression that you can fall into, that I fell into, and what was it like, you know? So that song is really about me.
Walter Trout with us on Route 66. That was Playing Hideaway from his latest album, Battle Scars. We'll talk about your tour in just a moment, Walter, but a couple of other tracks I wanted to touch on. The week the album came out, we did My Ship Came In, which I believe is you singing about how you'd got the record company all lined up to do a lot of promotion and really get behind you, and then suddenly all this health stuff came into play and you felt like your ship came in and you weren't on it.
Well, you know, it's that slang phrase, you know, my ship came in, man. Good things are happening, you know. I don't know if you have that phrase here in England, but
yeah, we do.
In America, that's a slang phrase meaning, wow, something great has happened. And for 5 years, my record label, Pro Vogue, who I love those guys, but they planned on doing a big promotional push for my 25th anniversary as a solo artist. They planned it for 5 years. They commissioned a biography to be written of me. They commissioned a documentary to be done of my life, a film. They planned on releasing my old catalog on vinyl, and they were going to call it the Year of the Trout, and they booked the best tour I've ever had booked. Just some great shows, some big venues, and it was going to be the publicity promotional push that I have waited for my entire solo career. And in one day, my wife and I sat down and made the phone calls, and we canceled an entire year's work. We canceled a tour of America, a tour of Australia. We canceled 2 tours of Europe in one day. And so I remember saying to her, well, it's kind of like my ship came in and look, it sailed away again, and I'm not on it. I was trying to make a joke, but neither of us laughed.
Are you worried in terms of writing for the next album? This Battle Scars album is you singing about your own very personal blues. Instead of My Woman's Done Gone Left Me, or, you know, red lights on the train at the train station, or going to see the devil at the crossroads. This is your blues, and it's so personal, it's so deep, and it's so real. Are you worried that whatever else you write in future is going to feel, even to you, a bit tame in comparison to this?
It's funny. I have had those thoughts, but I have to say, after I did Blues for the Modern Days, which is an album I did a few years ago, that I felt was my statement on what it's like to be alive in this modern age in which we live, and there were political statements and there were lots of things on there. I thought, well, I don't know what I'm going to have to say after that. And then I did The Blues Came Callin', and I wrote that when I was getting sick, and that album is about I'm getting really sick, you know. And now I've done this one, which is, this is what it was like being sick. It's almost like this and the last album are part of the same thing. So I have thought about, now, what am I going to write about? So I don't know. You know, I have to say I have had those thoughts. How am I going to follow this one up? Boy, I don't know. I'll have to wait and see. You have hit on something there that has crossed my mind.
In terms of moving on, Walter, and doing another, the next project, I know that you've been quite an instrumental part in the career development of Lawrence Jones, who's, of course, a great young blues guitar player and singer-songwriter. Is there anybody else, youngsters particularly, who you admire and enjoy listening to, or even would quite like to work with?
Well, Lawrence is a great one. I love the kid, man. He's just awesome, and he's such a nice guy, and we're such good friends. But there's a whole kind of crop of young guys that I have just tried to help out and be their friend and give them encouragement. And most of them, I have to say, are right here in the UK. There's Lawrence, there's Mitch Laddie, there's Danny Bryant, there's Ian Parker, there's Ainsley Lister, there's Ollie Brown. The list kind of goes on. And I think you have an amazing group of young musicians over here. I think this music is in really good hands. And I don't see quite that same kind of crop in the United States. There are some great young guys over there, but they're having a harder time getting going. It's a more difficult place to get a start. The UK seems to really encourage these young guys, and it's a beautiful thing to watch over here, that your country and the people of this country support these young guys and get behind them, and it's just awesome. You have an incredible group of young musicians over here, and if I can help any of them, I'm happy to do it.
It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on Route 66, and we're very glad to have you back in good health. The album's superb. We'll keep playing it on Route 66. We'll play Move On in just a moment. So thanks very much for coming on with us, Walter. Great to talk to you, and we'll look forward to seeing you on tour.
Okay, thank you, Rory, and thanks for supporting this music the way you do.
Things that used to give me before, they don't bother